Hello Internet, I am the Hero of Julios once again with another Dungeons & Dragons video. Have you ever had a bad stat? You know, when you're got a 9 or an 8 and you take, you probably do something to try and compensate for that. Like if you're playing as a tiefling, you probably put that 8 in charisma because you're not going to use charisma, but you don't want it to be an 8. A lot of players, especially in 5th edition, try to avoid getting that minus penalty on their stats because you may enter a social encounter and your charisma stat's not good enough to do the thing, or maybe there's a boulder coming your way and you want to be able to survive pushing it away from you. Whatever the reason, bad stats are something people try to avoid. I thought, wouldn't it be fun if you made feats that could be taken and compensate for these lack of abilities? Mind you, these feats do not enhance the stat they're associated with. They instead enhance something else about your character, incentivizing you to keep these stats. Additionally, if you do something to change these stats to increase them, this feat will become useless to you, because all of these feats require the prerequisite of having a stat of 8 or lower, except for the Constitution stat, but I'll get to that, and the character cannot be proficient in that stat's saving throw. Again, there's an additional prerequisite for the Constitution one, but I'll get to that when I get to that. So, without further delay, let us begin with the Strength stat. The feat is called Paper-like Body. I have it written down here. Because of your small frame, you have become harder to hit by ranged weapons. When you are targeted by a ranged weapon attack, your armor class is increased by 1 for the attack. Again, your smaller frame, you're harder to hit. So because you're a wispy little boy, ranged weapons don't hit you like they should, because maybe you're not as tall as the other orcs, maybe you're not as stocky as the other dwarves, and whatever's targeting you might be used to, shooting at something different. For dexterity, we have all flex, no dex. You have put no time into making yourself more limber, instead focusing on becoming strong. When you take this feat, your strength score increases by 2, and you gain advantage on all strength checks. It's basically the I'm so muscular that I can't scratch my nose feat. Normally, when you take a feat that does something to your stats, it usually increases it by 1 because the alternative is the ability score improvement. So in this case, it's an ability score improvement that increases it by the 2 that it should, and gives you advantage on all subsequent strength scores. This is perfect for a barbarian who doesn't really care about his dexterity, or a paladin who's already wearing heavy plate mail, but because they're not proficient, they will always have a -1 to those dexterity saving throws. Keep that in mind if the enemy wizard is throwing a fireball at you. For the Constitution stat, you can take the Brittle Caster feat, although for this one you need a stat of 6 or lower. In addition, you need to be able to cast a spell. Your mind is sharp, but your body is sickly and weak. This time spent studying must have been worth something, because when you take this feat, you gain 1 spell slot that can be used for any level spell you are already capable of casting from. Even at level 1, this is a great feat for a variant human, because you have an additional first level feat. And because this spell slot can be used for any level spell, at 18th level, you could be casting multiple 9th level spells before needing a long rest. The downside to this is the fact that you do not have proficiency in Constitution saving throws. You have a 6, which means you have -2 to anything involving your Constitution. And finally, you have a -2 to your health every time you level up. You are the definition of a glass cannon here, and a light breeze could definitely end your life. Even at level 1, that -2 is going to be a penalty to a wizard who starts with 6. You have 4 health. Goblins are thicker than you. But, hey, it's definitely worth the extra spell slot if you want my opinion. For intelligence, we have Whack It Till It Works. Sometimes, the best solution is the most simple of them all. When you take this feat, you start to see the more direct approach in everything. When interacting with a lock, trap, or similar object, you gain advantage on the roll for your desired outcome. Once you've successfully used this feat, you cannot use it again for a short rest. Basically, it is the mentality of the computer's not working, smacks it once, and now the computer is functioning again. That's why I left the similar object thing for interpretation, because, sometimes when the lock is, a padlock on a door is preventing you from opening it, the barbarian walks up and just crushes the lock. Door can't be locked if it doesn't have a lock, right? For wisdom, I made a couple changes to my initial draft of it, but I like how it's turned out. This is sheer dumb luck. Because of your calm nature, or maybe you just didn't notice the clear and present danger, you've managed to avoid the worst outcomes to situations. When you fail a saving throw, you can choose to succeed instead. You cannot use this feat again until you finish a long rest. That's right, this is a legendary resistance for once per long rest. Originally, this was going to be just let you re-roll a die on a saving throw, but it was pointed out to me that that's just a watered-down version of the lucky feat, and people would just take the lucky feat. This is a guaranteed success on something you fail on, so I think that's a good compensation. Plus, usually unwise people have the devil's luck, so this is a good alternative. Finally, my favorite of these feats, honest, for charisma. Negotiations aren't your thing, never have been, and lying isn't something you've been good at either. Because of this, you have an honest face, and people are more likely to believe you. When you make a persuasion check while telling the truth, you gain a +5 to your roll. Now, granted, because you have a charisma stat, this could end up being, only a +4, but if you're proficient in it, then you could gain something from that. You can't be proficient in a charisma saving throw, but you can be proficient in charisma-based abilities. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind for all of these, actually. It's just the saving throw that you can't be proficient in. Because of this, you are able to negotiate honestly, and for the most part, characters are going to be inclined to believe you because you don't really know how to lie. So, I like it. I think it helps with characters who, for lack of a better word, end up being the face of their party despite not having the stats for it. Usually it's the most friendly of the party or the most honest of the party, using this feat to give them the advantage in the spot where logically they should, but due to game mechanics they don't. So there you have it. These are bad stat feats. Feats that will help players maybe motivate themselves to have a dump stat, to have a spot where they're not really good at things. It's good for roleplay. It's good for the health of the game, because if everybody's walking around good at everything, why do you need a party? Why do you need multiple players if you're just going to be an RPG protagonist who knocks everything down single-handedly? But let me know in the comments if there's a way to improve these, if there's something you think is maybe overpowered or underpowered, because I'm still tinkering with these ideas, but I wanted to share what I've come up with so far. Thank you for watching as always, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.